Hi guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This one is going to be a special and important one because I'm really going to talk about my story, my awakening, how things happened to me, and yeah, how I really, stepped into my multidimensional self. I'm going to start by giving a little bit of a disclaimer and just saying that what I always say is this is my opinion, it's my experience, it's my story. Take it or leave it. I will be talking on a lot of controversial subjects. I will be mentioning gray alien abduction. I will be mentioning quantum time travel. So if you can listen to it with an open heart and an open mind, I would really, really appreciate it. If it doesn't resonate with you, then, now is the time to leave. So yeah, my big shift of awakening happened about just over 2 years ago, I would say. I was actually traveling. Well, I was back in my hometown. I am from Milan in Italy, but I do live in Cape Town. So I had traveled back to Milan for a friend's wedding for about 2 weeks or so. So I'd gone there to visit some of my friends and family, and this was a friend of mine very close to my heart. So he told me a year in advance. I was like, okay, let me go for the wedding. So I was there for 2 weeks. Everything was beautiful, and I was going through some emotional stuff at the time regarding my heart and relationships, and I was just going through a shift. So I wasn't completely grounded and solid in my power, I can say, like not 100% anyway. I was staying at a friend's house. I was living with her family. I had my own room there, and we were staying on the ground floor. So the night before I had to fly back to Cape Town, I couldn't sleep. So I'm not someone who really I used to struggle with insomnia when I was younger. Now I don't really have any problems sleeping. So it was very strange. So it was September, so it was quite warm. I had left there was a door window at the end of the room, which I had left open for the air to come in because it was quite hot. There was no air conditioning in the house. And it was on a garden on the ground floor. It was in a complex, so it was quite safe. It wasn't on the street, so it's not like people could have walked in, So I was struggling to fall asleep, and I didn't understand why, because I was tired. It was about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or something, and I had a very long intercontinental flight the next day, so I was like, I need to sleep. But I just put it down to, I don't know, maybe stress or worried about traveling or whatnot. So eventually around I think it was 3 o'clock or 3:30, I managed to fall asleep. As I fall asleep, I get catapulted straight into dream space. So let me say that I have been lucid dreaming from a very, very young age. I've been able to take control of my dreams. I've been able to know what's going on. I always know now if it's a co-creation of my mind or if it's a prophetic dreaming, if it's a message, if it's for someone. It took me years to be able to get to the point now where I understand. But because I understand myself and how my brain processes it, I know if I'm co-creating my dream, if it's a prophetic dream, if I'm in another dimension, if I'm traveling the astral, I'll know the difference when I'm in it. This time I was running. I was running away from aliens. Aliens were coming to get me, and I had to run away. So it was quite a nightmare. It was quite scary and terrifying. And I run, and I see all these people around me, and I see them just drop dead. It was like those movies, Eventually I'm just going to cut it short. I find this table, and I hide under the table. As I hide under the table, I physically, so now I'm lucid dreaming. I know I'm running away from the aliens. I know I need to hide, and I'm and I know I'm in a dream. I hide under this table, and I start feeling pressure and tingling and actual physical pressure on my lower back in my dream. And I'm like, this is very real. This is very physical. So it was so real, the pressure physically, it actually woke me up. As I woke up and I pulled my head out of the pillow, I literally turned to my left. So there was the bed, there was the wall. I was sleeping almost against the wall. I turned to my left and I see, now I'm awake, okay? I am 100% awake. I'm not dreaming. I've woken up from my dream because something was physically prodding me on my lower back. And I turn and I see this gray being, this thing with his face was on my face. He was wearing something sleeved like this. It was like a gray material, like suit thing with a round neck, and his neck was short and stocky, and it had a round face. It was quite tiny. It was like half the size of a human, I would say. And I saw him up to my waist, and he was just facing and looking at me, and I was like, what, So that lasted for, must have been maybe like 2-3 seconds. As that happens, I get physically slammed and pushed back in my pillow with my face. Like physically, I get something slams me and pushes me back in my face. And in the back, I hear this like scuttling, like walking, like running away, getting out of the window sort of thing. So now I'm with my face in my pillow. I'm completely covered in sweat and drenched. I'm shaking and I'm like, okay, what just happened? Like, am I going crazy? What's going on here? So then I managed to actually sort of get myself back up, like I couldn't stand. My body was almost frozen. I was basically paralyzed from fear. I was completely terrified, like completely. And then I sit up, and I actually really, really had to go to the loo. I couldn't move. It took me, I think, about 2.5 hours before I had the courage and the strength to get up and go use the toilet. So I knew what had happened to me. I had researched this kind of contact, and I knew that I'd always been, as I said, psychic, but I'd never had actual close, like physical contact with any being from any other dimension, I mean, other than maybe having visions and meditation and whatnot. Like, this was something else. This was something that I couldn't just, it wasn't something I could just be like, yeah, it was out of the corner of my eye. No, this was very real. It was very physical. It was very intense as well. So and then after an hour that I'm awake, like shaking, in my bed, like I messaged like 1 or 2 friends of mine who knew a bit more on the subject. But I also, like, my brain was so scattered that I couldn't even explain properly what had happened to me. So yeah, then I actually heard, it must have been an hour, half an hour, like, I don't know. The time was like, after I woke up, I was literally just like sitting in my bed, like, I actually heard the dogs barking outside. They were barking in a very like hectic way, like, and this was a safe complex. It's not like there were any burglars or people. Like, I slept with my door open, like window door open, for the air to come in every night for the whole time I was there, and this was on the last night. So let me say 2 other things. I don't believe that they were particularly targeting me. I don't believe that it was me, Althea, that they needed to target or abduct or do anything on. What I believe is that they were, because in these cities, especially somewhere like Milan, people are very asleep. I love my home city. I love it, but it's the fashion capital of the world. The most important thing that there is, your clothing and what you wear, and it's quite a superficial lifestyle that people live there day to day. So I believe that these beings have a lot of power to be able to roam freely around in these cities. So what I think is they were actually going from house to house, trying their luck and seeing who they could have worked on or abducted or done whatever it is that they wanted to do. I don't know what they wanted to do, because I was actually able to wake myself up and stop whatever was going on. And then I'll get to that later again as well, because then I actually, yeah, okay, so let me carry on saying, so that's one thing that I wanted to say. So I don't believe that it was me, Althea, that they wanted. And then the other thing that I want to say is I believe that because of my emotional state that evening, because I was going through stuff, my frequency had been lowered. So I allowed them to come in. If I would have been in my power, grounded, solid, shielded, they would not even have probably seen me. They would have just walked past. They would have not, but because of things that had happened to me recently and how I was feeling and I was upset, and because of my emotional state, I allowed that energy to come into my frequency. So, so that's why I believe they were sort of attracted. So then the next day, I flew back. I flew back to Cape Town. Obviously, I couldn't really speak too much. I was with someone at the time, and I don't believe that he really understood what I was going through, because I didn't myself either. So I did what anyone who's seen enough movies on alien abductions would do. I booked to go for past life regression, and I actually contacted 5 different hypnotherapists, and I said to them, listen, I need to go back. I was almost abducted. Have you done this before? Blah, 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 blah. Most of them, they were very respectful, but they were like, no, I'm sorry, I've never heard of this, blah, blah. And the one lady she said, no, I've never done it, but I have done something similar. And so I said, okay, I'll come to you. I got there, I found out that she had been a psychic for years on end. So I was like, oh, this is perfect, amazing. This is exactly where I need to be right now. So I got in. The whole session was about 3 hours. I think I still have the recording. She sent me the recording of it. And what she did is it was beautiful. So it took me about 45 minutes to actually go in and be in proper. She sent me back as my higher self to that moment. So now let me start by saying that time isn't linear in the quantum realm and in the 4th dimension. So there's no space and time. Time is all happening at the same time and not happening at all. So she sent me back, and as I got back, she sent me back as my higher self. I was looking at myself in this bed with these. There were 3 of them. So I actually saw that there were 3 of them. There were 3 beings around me when I went back, and I saw them and I looked down, and the crazy thing is that I went back as my higher self in this spirit form as my soul, and they looked at me and they communicated with me, and that's why they left. When I woke up in Milano, I actually told them, I commanded them to leave, and I said, you cannot be here, you need to leave. And these things looked at my higher self as a soul, looking down at them in this moment that was a month or 2 or 3 weeks before. So they actually looked at me, and I said to them, I addressed first the one on the left, and then there were 2 on the right at the foot of the bed. They looked like grays, but also, I don't know how to explain, they had almost like a sort of shield on their back, which almost gave them a sort of hunched over insectoid. I think it was very strange. So I said to them, you need to leave, you need to leave, you need to leave. And they were so surprised that they were what, how is this possible? How is she here? Why is she accessing quantum traveling? They were very, very shocked. They were this is okay. Yeah, we're leaving now. This is out of our control. We did not expect this to happen. Things didn't go as they planned. So they literally scuttled out of the window. By me making the decision to go in past life regression, I actually went back and in a way saved myself. I don't know if I woke myself up, if the dream woke me up. I do feel like physically I would have woken up anyway, but they were very shocked to see that I was able to do something like that. So that was very empowering for me, and it made me understand a lot what actually happened that night. And I do believe that it happened the way it happened because of the way I am. I'm an Aries, I'm very stubborn. If you don't throw things in my face, I don't tend to really believe them. So I feel like that was the only way well, not the only way, but that was, you know, the way that it had happened to me for me to understand and believe how things work, you know. So then after that, it took me a while to process. And then as soon as I understood what happened after the past life regression, something switched in my brain. My perception of reality actually switched. So I started seeing reality in a completely different way. As that happened, it was not a conscious thing. It just happened because I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, if the bad aliens are real, then the good ones must be real as well. Then everything else must be real too, you know? And as that perception of reality established itself into my brain, for about 2 to 3 months, I would get downloads all day, every day, on how everything worked, on the sacred geometry, on the third dimension. I started actually seeing the third dimension in a quantum field, so fluid. So I started to see the third dimension collapse. So I'll give you an example. I would be driving. This happened, I think, in January of the year after. It's just an example because it's something I can remember very vividly. I would be driving. I was actually going to a party with a few friends of mine. And the cars in front of me would collapse and reform on a molecular level. So I would turn around and look, I don't know, at a building next to me, and it would be like swaying and moving, and I could see the space between the atoms and the movement of the frequency. And that's something that stayed with me since then. It's not something that's gone. It's something that now I can, I mean, I wouldn't say control. Like if I focus into it, then I'll see it. If I don't want to see it, I don't see it, but I know that it's there, sort of thing. And then what I also started seeing, my vision started activating a lot after that. I started seeing the whole rainbow spectrum around every single light. So every single light that I see the whole rainbow spectrum of everything around it as well, which is very, very beautiful. But yeah, so after that, my vision really activated. I would be sitting in my living room doing something, and the walls of my room would collapse, and I would be in space time. Like I would be sitting in space with like stars and planets around me. Like that's the kind of stuff that would happen to me. So obviously I thought, oh, you know, I'm losing my mind here. Anyway, so, but then the more I started getting the downloads, the more I started to understand how everything worked. And I was lucky enough to have 1 or 2 people that understood what I was going through, that I could speak to, that helped me through it as well. So yeah, with, you know, like patience and grounding, slowly I started to ground myself and to understand and to, you know, process. But for those 2 to 3 months, I was working, but I wasn't really there. Like all I every night and every day I would get these downloads on how everything worked, and my galactic family started communicating with me. Everything sort of started opening up. My third eye was seeing blue flames and light in my room, like it was, you know. Yeah, so that's how my awakening happened. Then I decided to take my Reiki treatments after that, and then started working more with the multidimensionality of myself and everything around me, and that brought me to where I am now. So yeah, I also want to say, as I said, I mean, not everyone's awakening is so dramatic. This was, I mean, a lot of stuff happened to me, but this was the main thing, I think, that switched my perception of reality, and that made me understand that really there's a lot out there that we don't know about. But you know, a lot of people awaken gently, and it's different for everyone. But this is my story, so thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to write it in the comments. If you resonate with my content, please subscribe. I will add the links to my website and my Instagram, where you can go see my art and everything else. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and have a beautiful day.